Hey, hello, everybody. My name is Roger Pulvers, and I'm here to talk about my new book that's just coming out from Ballastier Press called Poems 2020. Now, 2020 is a word which we use for very good eyesight, to be able to see things so clearly that not everybody may be able to see. So that's one meaning, but it also stands for the year in which the world confronted the worst pandemic in many, many years, all around the world. So people all around the world were kind of united in a sense of isolation, loneliness, also fear, but also hope that once this is over, maybe we can create a better world for young people and come to terms with the problems that we're facing. And there's no better medium for us to both look into ourselves and look outward to connections with people all around the world than poetry. Now, it just so happens, because of my background, I speak and read and write 3 foreign languages, all of which I learned when I was in my late teens or in my early 20s. So I wasn't lucky enough to be born into a foreign language, but I learned them later, and I came to love the poetry, particularly of these 3 countries, which were very far away, both in geographically and in spirit, from the place where I was brought up, which was Los Angeles, California. So you almost can't get farther from Los Angeles than Warsaw, Poland, and Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia. And of course, on the other side, Kyoto, Japan, where I ended up going in 1967. So I studied Russian and Polish at university. Then I went to those countries. I was in the Soviet Union in 1964 and 65. And then I was a postgraduate student in 1966 and part of 1967. And then in 1967, I went to Japan and I taught Russian and Polish to Japanese students at a university. And I had to learn Japanese to teach Russian and Polish. So I learned Japanese. And then I started translating and writing books in Japanese. And for those of you who are interested in that story, please have a look at the Ballastier Press memoirs that I've published called The Unmaking of an American and My Japan, a Cultural Memoir. So I've spent last year writing a lot of various things and also translating poetry. And I set up a YouTube channel called Roger Pulvers Reads, and it's still on YouTube. So please have a look at it. And I recorded 100 readings of more poems than that, but 100 times, basically every 3 days for 300 days. Poems that I translated from those 3 languages, Russian, Polish, and Japanese, the poems that I've loved. And actually, I was very pleased to know that I had a very good, very warm response from people all around the world. So it was a kind of connection for me to have with people in various countries. One particularly interesting connection came in the translation of the Polish poet Gałczyński. Now, I know the name sounds very, very foreign to a lot of people, but he's a household name in Poland. And it just so happens that Gałczyński's 5 grandchildren, all 5 grandchildren, live in Australia, here where I am now recording for you. Hence this unusual, to people in the Northern Hemisphere, unusual Irish sweater that I'm wearing, because here it's the beginning, coming on to the beginning of winter. So there was, through Poems 2020, I had a connection with Poland, Australia, and so on, and poetry being the lifeblood of every nation, whatever country you're from, poetry is the language, is the song. Poetry is also called song. In Japanese and Chinese, it's also called song, and with the character for song. And it's the music of words that unites us all. So I chose my favorite poems, more than 100 of them, and I translated them. And then I decided to publish those poems with biographical notations and commentaries to make it easy for people to pronounce the names, to understand who the people were, helping people understand the customs. Some of the references, the local references, are very difficult in Japan or Poland or Russia for people who don't know them, the religious aspects and so on. So I added those in, and that came out in a volume from Balestier Press called Poems 2020. And I'd love to be able to hold it up to you right now, but I don't have a copy yet. I'll have one next week, but I'm sure Balestier Press will be putting it on the website and on Facebook, and so will I. So please look forward to that book coming out very soon. I've chosen those poems because I love them. I have left out one or two very famous poets. It's not the Cambridge Anthology of Japanese poetry or Russian poetry where you must include every important poet. I've chosen the poems that I love. And I say in the introduction, at the end of my preface, or at the end of my introduction to the book, you know, these are the poems I love. I hope you love them too. And so they're poems that have spoken to me over the last, well, since I started studying Russian, 57 years. So there's so much a part of me, and I just wanted to share them with everybody. I certainly don't have one particular favorite poem. I have poems which have had a great influence on me as an author over the years. And I did mention in the YouTube that one in particular, it's a poem by the Russian female poet Anna Akhmatova, who every Russian knows. She passed away in the mid-1960s, so she's been gone a long time, but she's still the greatest female poet and certainly one of the greatest Russian poets ever. And she's quite widely translated in the West as well, in French, German, Japanese, English, and so on. But there's one poem of hers which I heard when I was a student, which I think helped me to become an author, or at least understand the creative process, because one thing which no one understands really very well, not even people who write, is where does this creativity come from? You know, did you have an ancestor who was an author, or did you meet somebody, or was it some experience? And of course, it's many things, but we don't understand why or how we are able to write something. So for instance, I certainly don't consider any part of my body beautiful, but when I have my hands in front of me and I'm typing or writing with a pen, sometimes I just look at my hands as if they're writing or typing by themselves. Sounds a little bit spooky, but I don't mean it in that sense, like sort of science fiction or monsters or anything like that. And I look at my hands and I think, my God, those are beautiful hands. For some reason, the hands are doing something that I can't do. And I wonder what is moving the hand. And the ancient Romans and the Greeks had the metaphor of the muse. The muses were sisters, and there was a muse of music and so on. And each muse would visit the artist, and the artist might go into a trance, or the artist might be possessed by that muse. Possessed not in the sense of owning, but possessed in the sense of having that person enter your body. And then for that time, you're very lucky. The muse is dictating to you the words. And all you need to do is provide the hands that can write this down or paint these colors. And I very much feel that way. And Akhmatova's poem, Musa, the muse, talks about her one night being visited by the muse. And the muse says to her, she asks the muse in her bedroom, was it you who dictated to Dante the pages of hell? And the muse answers, it was. And so that you are lucky to be a writer is very lucky, or an artist is very lucky to have that tsunagari, that connect in Japanese, that connection with some writer from, or some artist from some time and place that is not there. And for that time, you are blessed, you are possessed. And the poem, The Muse, which I include in the books, so if people want to read it, they can see it there. And I also read on my YouTube channel, Roger Pulvers Reads, in English and Russian. So for Russians who want to hear it, they can hear it there. That had a big effect on me. But for the people who are watching this today, I chose another poem to read. This poem I translated from Japanese, and it was by a Japanese poet named Nakahara Chuya. And Nakahara Chuya died very young. And unfortunately, when he was still alive and writing, he didn't achieve the kind of fame, recognition in his country that he deserved. But I think he's one of the great poets of Japan. And now he is considered very great. And in fact, the Nakahara Chuya Prize is the leading poetry prize now in Japan. So it's named after him. And what I like about this short poem, here it is written out, because when I translate, of course, I write various drafts, and then the final draft I always write in pen. This poem is very unusual for Japanese because it's very romantic. Now, the Japanese men are not really known for their commitment to being romantic. At least personally, they may be very romantic. And I'm not saying they're not, because people all over the world are the exact same. But the poetry, the tradition of poetry is, of course, during the Heian period, 1,000 years ago, it was very romantic. But in the modern period, you don't have many poems, or you don't have many poets who write about personal love, tenderness toward someone they love. And because this poem does, I want to choose to read this poem. And I think it's very beautiful. And it's called Onto the Lake. And it's by Nakahara Chuya. Let's take our boat onto the lake when the moon floats into the sky. Waves will be lapping against the shore and gentle breezes will be blowing. It will be dark by the time we're away. The sound of water dripping off the oars will bring us closer to each other as you pause intermittently in speaking to me. The moon will slip a little lower to listen intently to us and be just above our heads when our lips meet in a kiss. Then you'll start to talk to me, grumbling about this and that, and I will listen to your every word as I row and row over the water. So let's take our boat onto the lake when the moon floats into the sky. Waves will be lapping against the shore and gentle breezes will be blowing. I think of it, I guess the metaphor or the simile that I would say, it's like docking with someone in space. You know, they're out there and you're floating in space and you need to dock with them and go in the direction that they're going. Or another metaphor might be two climbers on a mountain where the person who writes the poem is climbing up ahead of you and there's a rope which is you're onto, and you're being pulled up by this rope, and he or she, the poet, is pulling you in the right direction because it's the only direction you could go. And if you both get to the summit together, that's wonderful and you've done it. But if you fail in your translation, you're going to fall down and pull the poet right down with you. You won't kill the poet because the poet can always write in his or her own language, but the poem in English, the poem in your own language, in my case, English, that I'm translating into, has to exist as a viable, fascinating, intriguing poem, because no matter how close you are to the original, if you understand it, so you think, oh God, I really feel it. If the reader isn't feeling the same passion, the same enthusiasm, the same ardor as the reader, say in Russian, does when he or she reads Marina Tsvetaeva or Anna Akhmatova, then you failed. So you need to excite the reader. You need to be textually correct. You can't make it up. You can't change the original, but you can adjust a little bit to your own language. Of course, everybody does that. But you need the ultimate test is, does the poem, in this case, in English, read like a wonderful poetic experience? My message to the readers of Poems 2020 is, if you love hearing these poems, please learn foreign languages, go to and read books in foreign languages, read the poetry of other countries. And one of the best ways to learn a language is to read the poetry of that language, and turn again to the poetry of your own country and of your own native language, and look back at that. And I think that will help us get through the trials that we're all facing still in this year of COVID-19.